Good morning. Welcome to day 2 of our webinar about the Mayan sacred tobacco traditions and the Mayan sacred calendar. And I'm Marissa, and I'm going to be talking a little bit today about the Mayan sacred calendar, the ritual calendar, known as in Yucatec Mayan as the Tzolk'in. So I'm going to kind of get right into this because I have a lot to cover, and if I don't see your question, I will definitely be looking at the questions and comments afterwards, and I will be happy to answer anything or make a comment if you need one. Also, there will be a sign-up link to get the replay for this, and also a free gift. So let's go ahead just for a minute and kind of take a deep breath, close your eyes for a minute, and I'm going to go ahead and ask for a little bit of help here. Thank you. So, hi Kirsten, how are you? Okay, the Mayan sacred calendar. The Mayan calendar can be a little bit misunderstood. And what I'm going to be talking about today, I'm going to talk about in a way that may be a little bit confusing, so let me go ahead and clarify what I'm talking about from the start. In 2012, people were talking about the end of the Mayan calendar, which was a misunderstanding. What they were talking about is something called the long count, which is a series of cycles. The Mayan calendar has maybe 20 different cycles in it, whereas we in our Western calendar really only take track 2. The lunar calendar for people who honor the new and full moon, and our normal solar calendar, which is January, February, March, that kind of thing. So if you think of the Mayan calendar, they have over 20 of these cycles, and some of these cycles last hundreds of years, some even longer than that. So in 2012, all those calendars were going to line up and sort of come to zero, where they would all mesh together. That was what was meant as the end. And it wasn't really an end, it was a transition. I'm not going to be talking about that today. What I'm going to be talking about is the ritual calendar known as the Tzolk'in. This is a calendar that's used for divination. It's a way of honoring the spirits of the day and aligning yourself with the earth. It has a connection to holy places, and it's also used as an astrological tool. So, as you can see, it has a lot of different functions. I'm also going to be talking about this in a slightly different way, in the sense that although I follow the count of days used by the Quiche Maya, which are a group from the mountains in Guatemala, I'm going to be using the Yucatec Mayan names from the Yucatan Peninsula. And that's because those were the names that I learned how to pronounce. However, if you get my free gift, you will get the names for each of the day signs and each of the numbers, at least the day signs, written in both Quiche and Yucatec Mayan. So that way, if you're used to the if you're used to the Quiche names, you won't be confused. But the count of days that I'm going to be talking about is the Quiche Mayan count. Also, because I learned about the Mayan calendar in a very strange way about 20 years ago, I'm also going to be adding a little bit of information from Carlos Barrios, who is a Guatemalan teacher of the Mayan spiritual traditions, who spent a lot of time with another group of Maya from the mountains in Guatemala called the Mam people. And what they believe is pretty close to the Quiche, But what they use is a system of using colored candles as offerings. And I will be posting a link to that in the group if you're interested in doing that. And I'll be talking about that a little bit today. So, why am I talking about the Mayan calendar at all? Well, the Mayan calendar is a spiritual path that is open to any person alive on the earth right now. The Mayan elders, or at least the elders that I know about, have given permission for anybody to keep the days. They just ask that people do it in a sincere and authentic way. So, wherever you are, you can work with this calendar. And the other beautiful thing about it is that it's very easy and simple to work with. It's just a ritual that you do in the morning. And once you start doing this ritual, it becomes a doorway into Mayan astrology, and also, most importantly, a doorway into what the Maya call space-time, which is a spiritual being, a spiritual force to them. The Mam people call it, I think it's like Nacht, N-A-J-T. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. But space-time is something that you have, people have the ability to interact with for prophecy, to align themselves in a good way with the earth, and to fulfill their purpose on the planet. So this sacred practice is the gift from the ancestors of the Maya, who Kirsten talked about yesterday. And particularly among the Quiche people, it is also filled with their creation story. What's interesting is that the different day signs are connected to a book called the Popol Vuh, which was translated most famously by Dennis Tedlock, who's the husband of Barbara Tedlock. And both of them are initiated daykeepers. So they're not just cultural anthropologists, they're people who have actually gone through the training of becoming servants, spiritual guides of the calendar. And basically, what this creation story mentions is, once again, hero twins who interact in such a way. In this creation story, one of the hero twins is sacrificed so that he can help give birth to a son, another pair of twins who will eventually defeat the Lords of Darkness in Xibalba, which is the underworld. But what is amazing about this story is that you see once again the importance of the hero twins, a little bit of a residual from the hero twin stories that Kirsten was talking about yesterday. So that creation story is very important in the Maya traditions, because the Maya believe that we have the ability to work with time in a unique way. They believe that time has an aspect that is circular, in that things repeat themselves, and that it also moves forward in a line. So I like to think of it kind of as a spiral. And at any moment, with humility and respect and the right knowledge, we can participate in rituals that help to recreate the world so that things can go forward in a good way. So the history of the Mayan calendar is one that you can read about from anthropologists. A lot of famous anthropologists have worked with the Mayan calendar. The Tedlocks are my favorites because they're also practitioners. But Linda Sheila wrote books about this. David Stewart's famous for his work. And they're probably, David Stewart's probably the most famous person that is working with it right now that you might know about. And it's pretty thought that the Maya probably didn't invent the calendar. It was actually created by the ancestors, maybe the Olmecs or one of the other pre-Maya groups. And they found inscriptions dating to 200 BC. So they know that at least from 200 BC on, that calendar has been in use. The other part of the calendar that people don't realize is that there's a physical aspect of the calendar. Not only does it relate to our bodies, which I'll go into in a few minutes, but it also relates to the land. And so this will become apparent later on as I discuss working with the calendar. Like I said before, there are many ritual calendars in the Mayan tradition. The 260-day Tzolk'in is the one I'm talking about. There's another calendar called the Hab, which begins for the Quiche Maya in February, and it's linked to the agricultural season. And every 4 years it goes back one day. New Year's Day does. So it's an incredibly accurate and really amazing calendar. And the Hab is one unit in the long count, which the long count is what people were talking about when there was all the sort of fuss about 2012. They were talking about all those different wheels lining up. Also, the ritual calendar in some ways is the most famous in terms of contemporary practice, because if you go to a Mayan village and you have a divination performed where the daykeeper will open up his vara and he will count out groups of the sacred seeds, and he will recite the days and the day signs, he is actually invoking or interacting with, in a holy way, the days of the ritual calendar. So this is the calendar that, in terms of contemporary people, you would probably interact with the most. Hi, Jorge. So I want to talk a little bit about the basic structure of the calendar. And this gets kind of a little bit confusing, so if you want to know more about this, I really would encourage you to sign up and get the free gift, because I go into each of the 13 numbers and I go into each of the 20 day signs with a little more detail than I can do today. But basically, you have 20 day signs which make up a winal or month, and there are 13 of these, making 260 days. But you also have 13-day periods called trecenas, and these are thought of more like weeks. And the first day of the trecena, please forgive my Spanish, is basically carries out a journey like a pyramid or a wave that goes on for the entire 13 days, even though the names of the days change. So I'll give you a little bit of an example of how that works. But first I want to talk a little bit about why the calendar grounds into the human body. And most day keepers will tell you that while the calendar, it's well known that the calendar does have a connection to the Venus cycle, which has always been very important to the Maya people. A day keeper will tell you that the ritual calendar is connected to the human body. 260 days is thought of as a human term for a pregnancy. The 20 days relate to the 20 fingers and toes that we all have. And the 13 numbers relate to both the 13 heavens, which is very holy to the Maya people, and the 13 physical joints that we have in our body: neck, shoulders, elbows, wrists, hip, knees, and ankles. So as you can see, this is very grounded into the physical body. So while there may be parts of the calendar that are vast and connected to the stars, and the calendar is a very physical, integrated, and connected to the human body situation. So, wonderful. So, basically, each day sign, which I will talk about later, is like an archetypal energy. So oftentimes when you pray, you're really sort of praying to the day sign. The numbers are kind of expressions in the human world of how that day sign archetypal energy functions. And I'm going to talk about that now a little bit. When you go to pray in the morning or the night before, And this is where a little bit of a conversation is about how time is looked at in the Mayan world. In the Mayan world, everything is circular, even a day. So things don't really end, they transition. So for example, today in Yucatec is Osh Chikan, 3 serpent. That's one of the Nawal that's related to the day sign. So an astrologer might say that that day began at midnight. But what the day keepers know is that that day started at sunset the night before. It was a baby then in the underworld, and it was gradually getting stronger and stronger and stronger as the day Khan yesterday was getting weaker and weaker. So it's almost like if you think of a relay race where for a moment when you're handing the baton to the other runner, you both touch it. That's kind of what the nighttime is like in the Mayan world. And all the cycles work this way. Even our passage into 2012, there's a transition period where you're not quite one thing and you're not quite another. So when people talk about the Mayan calendar ending, they kind of don't understand the circular, cyclic nature of the way space-time is looked at in the Mayan world. So if you wanted to do the ritual, you might do the ritual for Osh Chikan in the morning, at dawn, or you could have done it last night after sunset. Either one would be considered fine. And in the ritual, it's common to, the Maya believe that things that ooze out energy are sacred. So for example, this is copal. It's a type of resin. I'll show you a piece of it. This is white copal. You can see that. And when you burn it, it lets off a very sweet smoke. And this is a very traditional type of offering. So you could burn a candle in the Quiche tradition. I think they sometimes they use beef tallow candles, but copal is also a traditional offering. And then you would address the day. I was taught to address the number and day. So I would say, Lord Osh Chikan. And Chikan is a day where we ask for our health. It's connected to sexuality, to passion. It's connected to the Kundalini energy in the body, which is called Koyopa, or blood lightning. So if you want to balance Kundalini, or if you're doing yoga, or if you want your meditation or your spirituality to be better, today is a good day. Or if you're trying to get your sexuality in balance, or if you want better health, strength, these are all good things to pray for on a Chikan day. Ken Johnson, when he prays, he uses the Quiche words. So he would say, Ahau Chikan. But he would say that in Quiche. And then he would talk about all the things that Chikan governs, and then ask for blessings. So this ritual, you can make it into your own, but what I'm stressing is that you're interacting with the day signs, not as symbols, but as beings, spiritual beings, that you give an offering to. And then you receive energy while you're meditating afterwards. And it's a wonderful experience because the day signs start to teach you things. So I want to talk a little bit about what this is like to really live. So the first thing is to talk about the Tresenas. There are 13 days, and each one of them have a different function. But if you think of them as a pyramid, day 1, which in Yucatec is Hun, is very powerful. It's a good day to start things. It's connected to many holy places in Mesoamerica, and it's got a very powerful initiating energy to it. Then the days after that are a little weaker because you're starting to climb up the pyramid. In fact, 3, the day that we're having right now, is kind of thought of as kind of an unstable day where it's kind of good to stay close to home or close to the things that you're secure with. Like you might not want to start things on a 3-day. Then you get up to the top of the pyramid and you get to the numbers 8, which is Wahak, which is a day that's sacred to men. So many of the male initiations happen on those days with the Quiche. And then there's Bolon, which is 9, which is sacred to women. So the days 8 and 9 are very sacred and significant. And then you go down the calendar with things getting more and more powerful until you get to 13, Oshlahun. And on that day, that's a very psychic day, very powerful. So if I was going to follow the Trecenas, the easiest way to get started, and I will post links to this both in the free gift and in the website, is to go to Jaguar Wisdom's Facebook page or to get the Mayan calendar app. Either one of them will tell you which day you're on. That's the most important and the hardest thing to do, is just to know where you are in the calendar. And Ken Johnson, who's Jaguar Wisdom, he was trained the traditional way by the Quiche Maya. And so the information you're getting is traditional and helpful. There's also another link to an organization called Sakbe, or sacredroad.org. They also give traditional interpretations of the day signs and numbers based on the Mam Maya tradition that Carlos Barrios teaches. So after you know which day you're on, which today is Chikan, then you would make your offerings, and then you would kind of sit in meditation for a few minutes, and then just go about your day. You don't have to plan your day according to the Mayan day. You just kind of begin to learn from the energies that some days are more conducive for you to doing things than other days. And personally, if you wanted to only do the candles and the copal on a few days, I would choose the 1 day, the 8 if you're a man, or 8 and 9 if you're a woman, and the 13. Because in that way, you'll kind of go through the Trecena, you'll kind of feel the energy of going up and down that pyramid without having to make a commitment to doing this every single day. And over time, as it begins to speak to you, you'll want to do it every day. But when you're just getting started, this is a lot to take in. And the Trecena is a wave, and you will feel a process as you go through it. The next thing you're interacting with is the day signs, like Chikan. If I was going to pay attention to only a few days in the calendar, I would pick 3 of them. While I was looking at Jaguar Wisdom's Facebook page or looking at the app. One of them is called Men. It's also Tzolk'in in Quiche. This is a day when people pray for money, and they also pray for vision. People in the Maya lands struggle financially, so it's not considered to be unspiritual or like bad to pray for money. And oftentimes the offerings are green, and it's also traditional to kind of think about in your meditation the day signs and what they've taught you. So Men would be a good day to make your offerings. The other day I would pay attention to is Ahau. This is a day that is devoted to the ancestors. In fact, in Momos Denango, where the person who taught me long distance and who is also the teacher of Jaguar Wisdom lives, Don Rigoberto Itzep Chanchabak, he says, Ken Johnson says that you can always tell an Ahau day because the cemeteries are filled with copal smoke. People leaving offerings, praying to their ancestors, and these are just ordinary people, shopkeepers, not medicine people, praying to their ancestors, asking for advice, asking to be in alignment with their ancestors, and to live up to their standards. Because the ancestors are considered, the ones that have crossed over are considered to be holy. And the next day, after Ahau, would be another day I would pay attention to, the night before. So you could do the day of Ahau, you could do an offering for the ancestors, and then that night you might want to do an offering for the day sign Imish. The reason why is because Imish rules dreams and psychic states. And so if you're trying to cultivate your dreaming, or if you want an important message, it's good to pay attention to Imish. There's eventually, as you start to work with the calendar, you're going to want to pay attention to all the days and all the numbers. But those are good ones to start with. Another aspect of the calendar, which was important to me, was the astrology. It doesn't really make sense to do a lot with your astrology sign in the Maya unless you get a professional reading from someone. And so if you're getting a professional reading, that's different. But to me, it doesn't make much sense to do your own reading with Mayan astrology until you have some familiarity with living the days. It just makes the day signs mean more. And in fact, once a year, all the days that make up your Mayan astrology chart occur. And if you know when your day sign and number, which is called your ceremonial birthday, happen, and your conception sign and number happen, you can start to feel what those signs feel like. In other words, a Chikan day like today feels different from an Ish day, which is associated with the jaguar. Or it feels different from an Akbal day, which is a day when you have more clarity around spirituality or insights or just clearer thinking or dreams. So, and then both of those are different from an Imish day or a Men day, where I might be concentrating on money or vision. So, for now, I would concentrate on living the calendar first, and then find out. If you use the app, you can find this out. There's a couple places where you can look this up online. What your Gregorian birth date is in the Mayan calendar. And once you have that date, if you have the mailing, the free gift that I'm sending out, you can find out your conception sign as well. So while your day sign and number has to do with who you are in the world and how you express yourself, your conception number and day sign is what you came into the world with. So I'll give you an example. I am born on an Osh day, like today, 3. It's kind of an unstable day. But my day sign is Chuen, or Bats, which the count of days begins on Bats, or Chuen. So it's considered a day sign that's good for creativity, for clear thinking and planning. And there's some spiritual gifts that come with it because of a connection to a conception sign of Akbal, which is thought to have kind of a mystical streak to it. My partner is Osh Lahun Akbal. So he has that mystical side of Akbal combined with the psychic number Osh Lahun. So that gives a person who really needs to develop their psychic gifts. His conception sign, I'm pretty sure, is Kawak, which has a little bit of a gift of healing and that he brings into this world with. So, as you can see, in the astrology, you have your own day sign, a sign that you came in with, then you would add a destiny sign, which is a sign that says where you need to grow, a sign that has to do with your mother, and a sign that has to do with your father. Now, all of this is too complicated for me to explain right now, but I do talk about it a little bit in the free mailing. But what's interesting is that as you live the calendar, the days will begin to talk to you. And they'll talk to you before you even know like anything about the calendar, just by living it. And I'll give an example. Sometimes I lose track of the days because I get busy and I forget to do the rituals, or I just get spacey. So I didn't know what day it was. And I was out in the park and I saw and heard a woodpecker and on banging its bill against a tree. And I remembered that woodpecker is the animal spirit, or Nahual, of the day sign Kaban. So I went home and I looked it up, and it turns out that day was Kaban. So that helped me get back tuned into the counting of the days properly. Another thing that happened to me was there was a significant solstice that happened on, it's called, it would be 11 Kawak. This was a significant day where a significant synchronistic event happened to me where I went to leave my offerings at a water place, and I saw a bunch of animals go by when I was asking questions about dreams I'd been having about water. So I later found out that 11 Kawak is a significant part of my birth chart in the Mayan calendar. So even before I knew that this day was important, I was kind of feeling into the importance of that day. And even if it's not the number, you will find that every 20 days when it goes, and when it hits the same day sign as your day sign, you'll feel something. You'll just start to get a feeling for the quality of those days. That's the sort of archetypal aspect of it. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is I wanted to talk a little bit about the Mayan calendar and dreaming. Dreaming is very, very important in the Mayan tradition. Like many of the Mesoamerican cultures, dreaming is almost a shamanic practice. And it's considered lucky to remember your dreams. Children are encouraged to remember their dreams. So there is a practice that's known as completing the dream. So what would happen is, let's say there was the night before an Imij, and I had a significant dream, but I didn't understand what it meant. So I would remember my dream, and I would kind of meditate on that dream every day for 20 days until I got to the next time it was the night before Imij. And on that night, I might consciously try to go back into the dream and finish the dream and to where I could get into an understanding of it. And I might repeat this until I finally completed the dream. This happened to the anthropologist Barbara Tedlock, and she talks about it in her book, The Woman in the Shaman's Body. And I think it might have taken her a complete Tzolk'in round of 260 days for her to complete one of the important dreams that had to do with her guardian animal spirit. But since she was training as a medicine person, you can see why something like that might be very challenging to complete. The other aspect of the dream and the Tzolk'in is that there is a book that Ken Johnson, Jaguar Wisdom, writes called Jaguar Medicine, and there is a basic sort of symbolism for each day sign that corresponds to a type of dream. So if you dream about like crossing a stream, it might, on a certain day, it might mean you're going to get money or something. I mean, there's these kinds of sort of everyday interpretations that have to do with the dream. But most of the time, if it's a really significant dream, you would probably either try to complete it or you would go and get a consultation with the daykeeper where they would work with the calendar in a sacred way, and they would basically explain to you what you needed to do to either live the dream or to take action to prevent something bad from happening in the dream. And so the last thing I wanted to say is, first of all, thank you very much, all of you, for being here. I've really enjoyed this. And this is a relatively simple practice to begin. I will be not only posting a link to the article about the colored candle practice, but also I will be posting a link to the free gift, which has the explanation of how to work with the days and the numbers, as well as some links to books and websites of people who have trained the traditional way with the Mayan calendar, so you know that this is coming from trusted sources who are Maya, instead of people making up things about the calendar. The other resource I have that I want everyone to know about is in the files section of Shamanic Earth Medicine. There's an article, a PDF that you can download called about the Mayan calendar divination process, that is an interview I did with Anita Garr, who was Don Rigoberto's translator. So once again, she lived with them. So you know that what you're hearing about is at least the way they do things in Momostenango. So I want to say thank you to everybody, and I'm going to go ahead and close this session, and I will answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.